Welcome back, everyone. This is the Nrgy Speaks Life podcast. I'm Coach Nrgy, the self mastery coach, speaker, mediator, and author. This channel is all about personal development and self improvement for those who want to achieve self mastery. You'll take away tips, strategies, and techniques on things that you can actually take action on today. This week, we are discussing financial literacy, debt, and struggling with debt. I have my guest speaker here, Clifton Corbin. Clifton, please introduce yourself and let us know what's your experience or relation to the topics that we are discussing today.
Thank you so much, Nrgy. My name is Clifton Corbin. I'm the author of Your Kids, Their Money, A Parent's Guide to Raising Financially Literate Children. I'm also the editor of a revised version of The Richest Man in Babylon, which was one of my guides to get me out of debt. My topic that I usually speak on is financial literacy, specifically with regards to helping parents teach financial literacy to children. But I have quite a lot of experience, and not all of it good, with debt. When I was a youngster, I like to say I was a money nerd when I was a little kid. I loved learning about money. I was quick to figure out how to earn money. I was really good at saving money. And then I went off to university, got those first credit cards, didn't know what I was doing, ran up my credit card one, ran up credit card two, started using credit card two to pay off credit card one. It's a slippery slope when you're at that point. Long story short, I basically made a mess of my finances. My credit score was ruined, and it was a bad scene. It was a pretty bad scene. So I spent most of my 20s, the later part of my 20s, digging out of debt. And I used actually the book that I mentioned a moment ago, The Richest Man in Babylon, to kind of help me along that journey. And maybe we can get a bit more into that as we get deeper into the conversation. But I know what it's like to struggle with debt. I'm lucky enough to know what it's also like to get out of debt, and what a relief it can be to find that freedom of not having debt hold you back. And I also feel like there's a lot of good that can come from debt. Like I feel very fortunate. I was able to get two college degrees, in part because of the debt that I was able to have. I was able to purchase my first home because of the debt that I was able to get. So I don't say that all debt is bad debt, but it is important to understand how to manage debt so that you can use it to hopefully put yourself in a better position going forward. And like I said, I've had a bit of both. I've been able to manage a bit of both. So I'll stop there and see if you have any questions for me. I'm happy to dive deeper into any of that.
Yeah, so you definitely have to let us know, how did you use debt to get 2 degrees and a house?
Sure. Well, if you think about it, student loans is debt, a mortgage, that's debt. So all of these pieces, it's one of the things that especially when I'm having conversations about debt, is that I want to stress is that not all debt is bad. When you're using debt to, consume and just purchase consumer goods, like, or food, or what, all these things that don't appreciate in value, debt can be a challenge. And I recognize that some people are in financial situations where they might be dependent on, let's say, a credit card or some type of debt to help them get through. But if you're not in a position where you need to depend on your debt to just manage your bills, then I would implore you not to use your debt to just purchase, like I said, consumables, because there's no value there. But if you're using your debt and you're leveraging, to, let's say, buy some real estate, or even if it was, let's say, I wanted to build a home, or I want to invest in myself with regards to my education or start a business, those are times where using debt really can come in handy. Like there's no way most people would be able to afford a home if they weren't able to leverage a mortgage, right? So there is advantages to having debt, but at the same time, when you have a lot of consumer debt, whether that be credit card debt or loans, and you just don't feel like you're moving forward, that could be a very big weight on your shoulders. That's just it's hard to move forward when you don't feel like you can, because of all the debt that you have to pay back. And I know, sometimes I say student loans are a good thing. Sometimes it really is a dependent. Sometimes it is, sometimes it isn't. We know right now what's going on with the student student debt load in the United States. Like there's mass like there's young people graduating now with hundreds of thousands of dollars in student loans, and it's hard to feel like you can ever move forward when you've got $100,000 student loan or a $30,000 student loan and you've yet to make your first paycheck. So I get that sometimes even investing in yourself might feel like a risky bet. So there's times where it might make sense, there's times where it might not, but I don't want to bemoan all debt. Like not all debt is bad debt, but I do understand that when you feel like you're indebted and you don't feel like you're making any headway, that it can be a challenge. But I just want to make sure I'm clear that not all debt is bad debt.
That's good. So you mentioned that slippery slope, especially as a college student using the credit cards. You open one, another comes, and it's like, wow, I have a mailbox full of offers. So you've been in that situation before. And like you were saying, also, the times that we're living in now, college students aren't just those who are coming straight out of high school. We have those who are in their 30s and their 40s and even in their 50s who are going back to college maybe to get that extra degree, or going back to get maybe a certification or, whatever. So, how did you get out of or get off of that slippery slope?
Mhm.
What types of steps or things to consider can you share with the listeners so they can get out of that situation if they find themselves in it?
Sure, sure. So, like I mentioned, I got into my debt troubles while I was in college. So, not a lot of income coming in, and the income I did have coming in from like side jobs was just enough to kind of pay for the bare necessities. So it was hard to make a dent in the debt that I had. Like I said, it was student loan and it was multiple credit cards. But eventually, I was able to graduate, thankfully. It was a tricky time. I graduated with a computer engineering degree right after the tech bubble burst, so I'm kind of dating myself there, but it wasn't the best. It wasn't the best situation, and that's one of the challenges is when you start feeling like, oh my gosh, I've got all these bills to pay. I I felt like I didn't have a lot of options. It's not like I could say, well, I'm going to wait until I find that perfect job. I was like, I need to take the job that can start giving me a paycheck right now. So I took a job. Wasn't my ideal job, but it did give me a paycheck. Um, and what I did is I basically threw every cent I had at the debt. I was lucky enough that my parents were able to let me come back home and live with them. So I was able to reduce my costs down to almost nothing, not nothing, but pretty low. And I threw every cent I had at my debt. I threw it at one of the credit cards and I was able to pay it off over a couple of months. And I still remember after I paid off that credit card thinking, I've paid off this, multi-thousand-dollar debt. It's great, or it should be great, but I still don't think I have enough money to go out and buy myself a slice of pizza. And that was one of those moments where I was like, this is like when we talk, like I've been talking about debt and having debt in the abstract, but the reality of it is when you have a lot of debt, and you can probably hear that deep sigh in my voice right now, when you have a lot of debt, it comes with depression, it comes with anxiety, it comes with a feeling of like, I can't move forward. And I remember after even paying off my first debt, I still had a lot of those feelings. And it was around that time when I kind of turned to the book I mentioned, the second book that I worked on, The Richest Man in Babylon, as a guide of how I can start not just paying off my debt. And in that book, it does give tips on like paying off your debt and making sure that you're living, within your means. But it talks about how you can start building wealth as well. And that's kind of what I did when I started paying off my second debt, which is what I would advise most people to do is, while it's nice to say, I'm going to throw all my money at this debt. When I did that, I did, I was, one of my credit cards had been paid off, which is technically it's fantastic, but the reality of the situation is I didn't have enough money to buy a slice of pizza. So what I did for the second debt is while I was paying it off, I started to save as well. And the combination of paying off a debt and saving is what I would advise most people to try to do if at all possible. Because what happened is when I paid off the second credit card, I had a little bit of money saved up. I didn't feel like, oh my gosh, I can't go out and, buy myself some dinner if I wanted to. I had some money saved up. And that was kind of like the seed, the nest egg that I started to build. So I was able to start growing my wealth from that point forward because I started to realize, well, if you're paying every cent you have, whether that be to bills or your debt or anything else, you're not growing, you're not building wealth, you're not going to be able to move forward. And the only way that we actually can start to have the options that we want, like I mentioned, when I graduated, I had to take that first job I could get because I needed to start paying off my bills. But once I had a little bit of money saved up, I was like, okay, I could sit back now and say, what's my next move? Do I want to go back to school? Do I want to, look for another job? I had a little bit of flexibility, and that's what building wealth. And when I say wealth, I mean just having some money saved up. Hopefully, it's invested in growing, but that's what I mean when I say wealth. Just having some wealth in the bank, it gives you those options. It gives you a little bit of flexibility. It's the idea of stopping that paycheck to paycheck cycle, knowing that if something were to happen, you have a little bit of money saved up. So what I did, I think they would call it the snowball method, where it's like, well, let's pay off the smallest debt first so that, then we could throw more money at our bigger debt, and then we could throw more money at the next debt and go on and go on. I like that method. I think it builds momentum. It's popular, but I think in addition to that, we really need to focus on making sure that in addition to paying off any debt we have, we're also focused on building up our wealth, because that's what really pushes us forward. That's what gives us the options and the flexibility, and hopefully gets us to a point of where we can say, we're financially independent, and that could be, at the point of retirement or whatever, but it's where you say, I work because I choose to work, not because I need to work. And I think that's kind of the goal that we're all working towards.
Yeah. And I'm glad that you mentioned the snowball method because I was going to ask you, like, is there a preferred way or a method that is maybe more effective? And that snowball method, I'm familiar with it also. But when it comes to not, so if you say throwing everything at debt, but also while at the same time saving, is there a certain percentage that people can use as like a guide for the amount that they need to save or put to the side while focusing on paying off their debt?
Sure. And there's a few things you said there that I want to kind of touch on. Um, Snowball method versus another method, it really doesn't matter. Like, the method is, it's whatever works for you. I like the idea of the snowball method because you pay off that first debt. Sometimes people say pay off the smallest debt first. Sometimes people say pay off the debt with the most interest first. It really depends on you. If I were to do it again, I'd probably tackle the one that had the highest interest rate first, because I know that will save me more money in the long run. So the method doesn't matter so much. It's what's going to keep you motivated to keep going and keep doing it. And the only way that we can pay off our debts is if we're living off of less money than we make. And that's the key factor. And you asked, how much of a percent should you put towards your debt or what have you? And I always preface anything I say, and I should have prefaced even this conversation with, all personal finance is personal first, right? So I kind of already mentioned it. I'm like, if you're in a financial state where you're not able to live off of less than you make, like every cent you make, you need to put towards, food on the table, heat in your house, and, rent or mortgage or what have you, then what I'm saying probably doesn't fit. But if you can find a way to live off of less than you make, then you should try to, because that's how you start to build wealth. That's how you start to move forward. If we spend every cent that we have coming in, then there's no way to move forward, because we're always using all of our resources. And money is basically, it's a resource. It's a resource that if we can collect, if we can have a store of, a supply of, a surplus of, it provides us with options. When I got my first credit card, I had that mindset of, well, my credit card is for an emergency. And I look back and I was like, that wasn't the right way to think about it. When you think, I don't want to owe someone money if I'm in an emergency. And that's what a credit card is, right? It's a short-term loan. The credit card company, the company that's, giving me this credit card, is lending me money. It's a short-term loan. Ideally, it's paid off by the end of the month. And once we carry a balance, like, the credit card company starts making money off of the interest payments. But if we can pay off that loan at the end of the month, we owe nothing and everyone's happy, or at least we're happy. The credit card company is less happy about it. But that's the way we really need to look at our credit card bills, is that our credit cards, is that a credit card is a short-term loan. And I don't want to depend on someone else when when I'm in an emergency situation where I need access to money quickly. And that's what we do when we say, oh, our credit card is there for an emergency. And yes, if you need access to money quickly and you don't have an emergency fund or a rainy day fund saved up, then the credit card is there. But ideally, you don't have to go into debt to manage an emergency. Like, you get a flat tire. I don't want to have to go on debt to fix my flat tire. So it's better to start saving and investing and having that, supply of money there in cash, if at all possible, so that if there is an emergency, you have access to it. So back to your original question with regards to percentages and how much, there's a lot of different methods out there of how to budget and how to save and how to pay off debt. 80/20, where you take 80% to discretionary and then 20% to savings and debt, or or you could do 50, 30, 20, or 50, 25, 25. Like there's no end of the ways that you can do it. It really just means what is the way that works best for you, and the different, depending on your income situation. Let's say you're a freelancer versus like a W-2 who's making like a steady pay, like how you budget and how you save and how much you want to allocate to paying off debt or saving or your living expenses will change. So it's so hard to say any generic general statement because everyone's situation is very different, right? Like uh, an entrepreneur who's got fluctuations in their pay and maybe their expenses, it's going to be very different than someone who's making a steady paycheck and has that salary and knows they can bank on it. So it's hard to say what works for everyone, but what I would say is if you're in debt and you know that it's holding you back and you know that it's like I said, it's that weight around your shoulders, the only way to get out of it is to start living off of less than you make. And the only way to do that is to start really prioritizing your needs versus your wants. Like, what are the things you absolutely need to focus on, and that's usually the essentials, a little bit of some of the discretionary stuff. I don't want you to totally deprive yourself of, entertainment and arts and all these things that bring our lives joy. But we need to make sure that we're prioritizing our spending. What typically can happen is, we start working, we start making money, and we don't think about it. We're like, okay, did I sign up for that 401k? Did I not? I don't know. Maybe I did, maybe I didn't. But if we do these things and we set up the systems early, so you sign up for that 401k, money's being saved automatically out of every pay. You set up a situation where every time you get a paycheck, 10%, 15%, whatever makes sense for you goes into a savings account. And that's happening without you even thinking about it. Now, the system is taking care of these needs and you're building that wealth, even though you're not thinking about it actively. And I think that's the best case scenario for a lot of folks, is just to have it happen in the background without them having to think about it. That's the ideal state. But, everyone, like I said, everyone's different.
Yeah. Oh, so much good information. One of the things that you mentioned were about whenever you're in debt, a person can feel or have thoughts of depression and feel anxiety and all of that kind of stuff. And I understand that there's a connection to your finances and your mindset.
Mhm.
Are you able to speak the mindset piece or towards the mindset piece regarding your finances or regarding, like you used the term earlier, budget? Like anytime that
Mhm.
I use that term in discussions, it's like, oh my gosh, don't say that. It's like a bad word. I'm like, no, budgeting is awesome. I know whenever I am talking about that with people who are kind of, struggling with debt or their finances, it's like, but then I won't be able to live life, or I won't be able to experience, like you were saying, some of the wants that we may also just want to be able to experience. And so for you, what patterns or just what type of mindset thoughts or regular occurrences that you may have noticed in your journey, as well as whenever you help other people regarding the connection between your finances and your mindset?
I love how you brought that up, and I want to dig deeper on the budgeting piece, but I know you're asking about mindset. I think I'm going to do my best to tie the two of them together. When we think about what we want, whether that be a financial goal or just a personal goal or whatever it is, we need to do something that it's an impressive thing that a person can do. We need to think about a future state that has not happened. We have to envision us on that beach in the Caribbean. We need to envision ourselves retired and not working again. We need to envision ourselves debt free or what have you. We need to come up with a future state and come up with it in our mind's eye, if you will. A budget or our mindset is the tools that we use to reach that future state. So I know a lot of people are anti-budget, and it can be boring and it can be frustrating, and it's not an easy thing to get your head wrapped around. But what a budget does is it doesn't prevent you from anything. What it does is it hones you, it focuses you on the thing that you've identified that you want. So if you come up with that future state of, I'm going to be debt free, we're talking about debt here, I'm going to be debt free, and you develop a budget using, let's say you need a budget or Mint or the envelope method or any of the other budgeting methods that are out there, and you come up with a budget to get you to debt free. And then you're now in the present state and you're like, well, I really want to go to that game. It's going to cost me this much money, but my budget says I'm not supposed to go to that game. I need to put that money towards, rent or towards paying my bills. Well, your budget is trying to tell you if that future state is what you want, these are the actions you now need to take in the present to get you to that future state. It is a tool to guide you in your decision making to get you to where you want to be. The same with the mindset. If you say, I want to be this, well, then now you need to think, well, if I want that, what do I need to do to get there? What are the things I need to do? What are the actions I need? And we know that our thoughts affect our feelings and our feelings change our behaviors. So if we're thinking, I cannot get that, well, then your actions will reflect that and you will go on a spending spree and you will not put the money towards the things that you think you want. So our mindset affects how we get to what we want. Our budget is the tool that we use to make sure that our spending is in line with the vision that we've come up with. So if it's truly what you want, a budget is a powerful tool. It's not easy. It's not an easy thing to live within sometimes. The thing that can happen, especially over, weeks and months and years of living within a budget, is that you can become accustomed to it and then it's not so hard, right? It's like anything else, right? Like if I was stopping at a coffee shop picking up a donut every day before work, as soon as I say I no longer want a donut before work, you know what? That first couple of weeks, it's going to be hard not to get that donut because I've been conditioned. I have the habit. I've built this habit of getting this, this sweet treat and getting that dopamine hit and doing all these things that make me feel good. If I say, well, I want to lose weight and I know to do that, I need to stop eating this donut every day, it's going to be hard. There's some challenges there. It might feel restrictive. It might feel like you're making a sacrifice. But if the end goal has been identified and you can now know and you know the path to get there, then it's really about making those regular decisions. And like I said, even before this, if we can then set up some systems to help us, so whether that be making sure that money is removed from our account to make sure that we're saving, making sure that the bills are being paid after we started saving to make sure that we're not now dipping into that with our discretionary spending. If we can set up some systems, whether that be automatic payments or what have you, or going cash only, there's a lot of different systems. I'm not going to advise on all of them because it's just too many. But if we can set up the systems to make sure that they're helping us. They can't replace, because we're blessed to have the freedom of choice, right? At any point we can choose to do this or we could choose to do that. But if we know we have an end goal in mind and we want to work towards that end goal, then having systems that kind of push us into that direction, we still have a choice. We could still say, you know what, I'm not doing that. And it works with budget, it works with diet, it works with wellness, all of these things. We need to make the conscious choice to do what we think is in our best interest. And having that future goal set and defined really helps you to do it. And like I said, the budget when it comes to spending, that is the tool that you can use to say, yes, I want this. That's where I want to go. And to do it, I need to make sure that my spending aligns with those priorities and aligns with my vision of who I want to be and what I want to achieve.
Absolutely. Thank you for speaking on budget. I love whenever I am in a conversation with someone else who understands and can help just break it down the way that you explained it, the different examples that you use. It's relatable. It's easy to understand. It makes it practical. And for me, like budgeting is just all about it's creating more freedom or giving you that freedom. It's not as restrictive as people assume or think or to where it may make them feel as though it's restrictive, but it really isn't. If, like you said, you have a choice of what's in front of you right now versus what do you want down the line. Which one do you prefer? Which one do you want more? And so yeah, it's all about the choice that we make. as well as you used habits. I had wrote a note just before you said it. I wrote something that says it's all about creating habits. And I also mentioned or wanted to ask you, what suggestions do you have that you can share for people to either change or start to change their mindset so they can start creating healthier habits around money or their finances?
That's a great question. I feel like with regards to changing your mindset, it's hard, right? Again, this is another situation where it's different for everyone. I was talking to someone just before this phone call, or just before this call, and I was talking about how this one person felt very stuck. They wanted to move forward and they felt stuck. And I asked the person I was speaking with, well, what happened for them? And I realized there's not going to be a universal, you do this and your mindset will shift. But I think two things can help. One, identifying what the end goal is, kind of back to what I was saying, like envisioning what you want. And a great motivator is, why do you want that? Like, what is it about that end state that makes you excited? Is it it's going to it's going to, make you a wonderful role model for your children? Is it it's going to provide you with the freedom and flexibility in time and resources that you've always wanted? Like, what is the why that has you desiring this future state? And then anchor yourself to that. Say, if this truly is what I want, and I know the reason I want it, and that why is bigger than me, hopefully it's bigger than you, maybe it's not, but if it's bigger than you, if it's because you'll be a better contributor to the community, or to your family or whatever, if that why is bigger than you, it can help to motivate you. Now, I'm not going to say I'm a mindset guru and I'm going to say this will definitely work for you, but I know whenever I feel challenged in my thinking and I start to default to some of, let's say, the poor habits that I've built over the course of my lifetime, what usually brings me back to, hopefully eating better or exercising or spending my money in a purposeful way, is when I start to think about my whys, which are usually related to my family and my contribution to my community. When I start thinking about those things, I'm like, well, yes, I could do this, but then what am I doing when it comes to those things that matter so much to me? So having a clear future state identified and a purpose of, what are you doing this for? What is the purpose of this? That usually helps to motivate me to continue to do the hard things. Now, I don't know if it worked for everyone, but I know it works for me.
Definitely. And I will add to that the the 2 points that you made, identifying the end goal and finding your motivation, your why, like what's your why. Both of those are things that I use just on a regular basis, even with clients who come to me for coaching and even mediation, but specifically coaching. And they're trying to work through something or trying to achieve something, whether it's involving finances or not. And so I say that because those 2 points are part of the process no matter what. No matter what you're dealing with, no matter what you're currently focusing on, you first have to identify it, because without identifying the either, I like to say, identify where you currently are, like the
Hmm.
self-awareness type of piece or just awareness piece of things, and then identifying where you want to go. And so
Hmm.
therefore in between those 2 points, you can map out a practical and realistic type of plan that you can walk step by step. So the identification portion is super important. And then what's your why? I love that. That's one thing that I always have people just pause for a moment, or I'll even give it to them as like an assignment and
Hmm.
say, hey, come back to me next week during your next session. And between now and then, I want you to actually just sit down, bring out a piece of paper, pen. I don't want you typing this up. Don't use your phone. Actually put pen to paper or pencil to paper and really think about, what is your why? Like, why do you want this thing so bad? And I have them do that exercise in order to, it's that reminder for once the process gets started or once they are further down that journey and then the going gets tough and they start feeling like, oh man, it's I can't do it, or this is too much, or it's too hard, or it's taking too long, I'm not seeing any results that I thought that I should see, so forth and so on. Go back to that assignment, that exercise, your why, and remind yourself of why we are here, why you're doing this, why you came to me in the first place. Why did you set the goal that you ended up setting? So that's one of the takeaways that I want to give our listeners for today is any whatever type of situation that you're currently dealing with or whatever goal that you are looking to achieve, and if you know yourself well enough, again, self awareness, if you know yourself well enough and you know that you're probably going to need some accountability, you may need just that extra hint of motivation throughout this time or throughout the process, then take a few minutes and figure out what is your why. So, just like Clifton mentioned, go ahead and identify what your goal is and then do the other part of writing down what is your why. Create those different pieces of motivation to where you are helping yourself help yourself. So I definitely just wanted to point those two facts out, or those 2 points that you mentioned, because that is so important. And it may seem it may seem not as important whenever that particular exercise or assignment is given. Like, well, why do I have to write it down? Why can't I just type it out? Can I just do, it's like, no, trust me, trust the process. This is going to be helpful. So therefore you can help yourself when that time comes, because it can be easy to just say, you know what, forget it. I changed my mind. Oh, I don't want it that bad. And if not, that's fine. But if you really want it that bad, then you may need to have certain tools, certain little rewards, certain little things that you've already put in place to help you out throughout that process, to get you to the end goal, to get you to that finish line.
I
So I'm glad
100%
that
agree with you.
yes,
I
I'm glad that you brought that up.
I would love to ask, and this is just me asking you. I agree with you, and I would do this myself. And if you look at most of my notebooks, I've got little notes all over the place. Why do you think it's so important that they write it down and not use a computer or their phone? I have, like, I'm totally in favor of writing it down. I think there's a connection there, but I'd love to hear your rationale for it.
See, so for me, it's all about when you take the time to put pen to paper, the main thing is that it slows it down. It slows your thoughts down. It slows quote unquote time down, so to speak, to where you actually have to form each of those letters as you're writing it, writing in full, complete sentences of what you want, why do you want it, and whatever else you want to put in there as your motivation. So that's one of the main reasons behind writing something down versus typing it out. And then secondly, when you write it down, I'm going to go a little spiritual for a second,
Go
but
there.
when you write something down, it's actually in the book of life. When you write it down, you're literally putting it on paper, and you're able to visualize it, so that's another reason. And
Hmm.
then two, when you're writing it in your own thoughts, so you're able to make it plain. And when you're writing something down, it's like you're creating this quote unquote promise or vow
Hmm.
to yourself of saying, hey, this is what I'm saying I want. I'm going to stick with it and commit to it. So to me, the third part is that it creates more of a commitment to whatever the thing is that you are writing about.
I agree. I agree. I feel like there's a again, not to go spiritual, but I feel like there's a connection between, especially if it's something personal, it's something inside of you that you put down on paper. There's now a connection to it. And it's the first step of making that real, right? Like up until that point, it's esoteric, it's in your head, it's a theory, it's an idea, it's a concept. But now you've made it a little bit more real. It's on paper, you can see it, you can touch it. So I feel like there's a connection there between your thoughts and then putting it onto some physical paper. That isn't the same when you type. It's not the same when you tap on the screen. It's not the same when it goes into a digital space as a physical space. I agree with you.
Absolutely. And then when you write it down, you can also post it somewhere where you can see it on a regular basis. I can't, I've lost count on the number of times where clients will say, oh, yeah, I put that in my notes. Okay, how often do you go back to your notes? Like, okay, notes from 2 months ago. Are you actually going back to those notes that are in this electronic device in order to see, okay, are you on track with whatever you may have written down? Or did you, can you check that thing off your list? And the notes just start piling up. And it's like once they put it in the note in an electronic device, they forget about it. It's kind of
Hmm.
like out of
Hmm.
sight, out of mind. But when you write it down physically, another reason that I like it, because I write things down on a daily basis, I use an actual daily planner. And whatever it is that I am working on, or once I complete a certain task or an assignment, there is such a great feeling when you can go back to that piece of paper, look at it, and say,
Done.
done.
Hmm.
Yeah, so it's kind of like the same feeling where you were talking about the snowball method, for an
Hmm.
example, how it creates that momentum. Because once I see that
Yes.
I've gotten that
Yes.
first thing done, then I'm like, okay, what's next? Because that was
Hmm.
a good feeling. It feels good. It's letting you know that I can do
It
this.
can, exactly. It's the
Yes,
I can. It's you were talking mindset. It is a switch of maybe it's possible. I don't. Maybe I don't. It's 100% doable because it's that one thing is done. I put four things on this list, and number one is done. So number two is definitely possible.
exactly. Ah, that's so good. Let's talk about you are big on discussing finances as a family.
Hmm.
So, can you give or just kind of talk with your experience or maybe some patterns that you may have noticed, whatever it is? Can you just kind of go into that next section about discussing finances as a family and talking about money openly?
Sure. So I mentioned my financial troubles as a 20-year-old. And I feel like I was very fortunate. I had two parents who were more than willing to talk to me about their finances. If I asked them how much money they made, they would show me pay stubs. And I realize that is definitely the not the norm. But I wish it was. And I'm trying to encourage more parents to have that type of open transparency with regards to money. We still have money is still this taboo subject that we feel uncomfortable talking about, that we and because we don't talk about it, a lot of confusion creeps in, a lot of complexity can creep in for no reason. So I want to take some of that stigma away. And like I said, I had challenges in my 20s. And one of the reasons I had challenges, as much as my parents were willing to talk to me about money, we kept it at the, go to school, earn money, save money, and that was the end of the conversation. We didn't talk about wealth creation and the value of wealth creation and the options and that come from building wealth. We didn't talk about securing wealth. We didn't talk about taxation and insurance and all the other pieces of financial literacy, to my detriment, I think. And that's what I'm trying to encourage more parents to do. I feel like if we can normalize these conversations, one, it'll just be easier for us to learn and build and grow and lift each other up, right? Like if you came to me and said, hey, I'm struggling with this, and you felt comfortable coming to me and I could talk to you about, well, what I've done, and here, the same conversation we're having right now could not happen if you and I were uncomfortable talking about finances. And that would be a shame to anyone who's getting any value out of this conversation. So I want these conversations to happen at scale amongst friends, amongst family members, and definitely between parent and child, because there's growth and there's learning that could be had there. So that's why I wrote my book, Your Kids, Their Money. It's to give parents the tools and the language and resources and tips and habits that they can give their children, so that their children maybe don't make the same missteps I made in my early adulthood. So that's why I'm so passionate about making sure these conversations are happening. If we hope that the school system's going to be doing this, they're not going to be able to do it, and they definitely won't be able to do it in a way that I think your child deserves to hear about money from your perspective, to hear about your values and how you feel about money and what you want them to understand about money, earning, wealth creation, all the rest. And that is an opportunity there. There's so much learning and value that can come from that, not just for the child either, but also for you. Like you get to have another accountability partner on your financial journey, right? Like if you really want to leave a legacy of knowledge and understanding, then you want to be a role model here. You want to demonstrate what good financial habits are. So you have an accountability partner that you might not even recognize living in the same home with you. So there's so much value that can come both to the child and to the parent when we start normalizing normalizing some of these conversations. So that's why I advocate so strongly for more financial literacy within the household, so that we can start, like I said, normalizing these conversations and providing the habits and financial management skills that children need to have before they go out on their own, before they get those credit cards, before they get that student loan, so they have all of the knowledge that they'll need once they're out on their own. And they can get that from you, and they can get that in a safe space because you're there helping, coaching, and advising them.
Definitely, because otherwise they'll pick it up from their friends. Their friends will tell them, "Hey, I saw this deal, or you can save on shipping if you sign up for this credit card." And it's like, "No, don't do."
There's so much. Like, look at how many people lost out big with cryptocurrencies. Like that, just as an example, right? Like I can't remember the stats, but it was basically talking about the number of people who invested in cryptocurrencies and their level of financial literacy. And the level of financial literacy was very low, and the number of people who invested was very high. And it's not surprising because it was so speculative, meaning that there was a high risk there, and it was new and novel. So people jumped in thinking that there was a big potential reward on the outside, which, that I'm not saying that's as good or bad. Again, it's all personal, but I don't know if everyone who jumped into that speculative market recognize the risk that they were taking by doing it. And not knowing the risk is partially because they didn't have the financial literacy understanding going in. Like, this is an investment. Well, with an investment there is risk. Well, how much do I know about this investment? How long do I plan to keep my money into this investment? What other ways can I diversify my investment money to make sure that if this goes down, I've got other things that can compensate and hedge against this? And that is what I want parents to provide. And I know sometimes I have these conversations and parents are like, well, I only know so much myself. Like, how am I supposed to go and talk to my kids about this? And I usually come back and say two things. One, you know more than they do. I can 100% say that with confidence. As a parent, you know more than your child knows about earning, about working, about saving, about all of these things, and about not doing all of those things, right? So if you're not where you want to be, and it's because you did this or you didn't do that, you can talk to your children about that. Now, I'm not saying burden them with any of that stress and anxiety and depression you may have, but you could start talking to them about what they may or may not want to do once they're out on their own. So you have that. Second, like I said before, this is an opportunity for you to learn more. If you want to talk to your child about why they want to create wealth and how they might want to go about creating wealth, but you don't feel like you know how to create wealth and how to grow your wealth, well, this is an opportunity for you to learn, right? And we say this all the time. One of the best ways to cement the learnings that you receive is to teach someone else. So this is a chance for you to go out and learn, figure out what you need to know, fill any gaps you may have. Unfortunately, our education system has not done anything in this world, especially for my generation. Like, it's starting to trickle into the school system, but definitely not at a scale that I think is sufficient. So our generation may not have all of the skills, but this is an opportunity to go out, seek some advisors, seek some different books, whatever it is, to increase your level of financial literacy so that you can then help your child to say, listen, you want to make sure that when you're making money, you're not spending all of it. You want to make sure that you have some of your money making money for you. So you could start providing these lessons to them now. And again, you don't need to do this in everyone gather around the fireplace with a whiteboard and start, showing them, equations or anything like that. Just talk about what's happening in your day-to-day life. Talk about the stories that happened in your past. I come from an immigrant family. I talk all the time about how my parents came with very little and they were able to, buy that starter home. It's a very different time now. Buying a starter home isn't as easy as it was back then, but I could still talk to them about how they were able to start building wealth and what that meant for them. And again, it's just stories that help to articulate and demonstrate what we hope our kids will be able to do one day. And I know, again, the times have changed and inflation is crazy, and cost of a starter home now versus what it would have been back in the 70s is very, very different. But we can still at least start to introduce these ideas to our children, because there's still a lot of value that can come from just understanding the concepts so that it's something that they can be working towards, right? Like, when I was growing up, the only way you can make money is by trade. The only way that I was taught to make money was by trading my time for money. I know now that's not the only way to make money. There are other ways to make money. You can invest, and your money will make money on the money that you've invested. So there's different things, but if our kids don't know it, if they're not aware of these other methods, and maybe, maybe it's not something that you're willing to do right now. Maybe you're risk adverse and you're like, I'm not sure I feel comfortable about that. But you want to make sure your children are aware of what's available to them.
Definitely. As you were talking, and especially with the last sentence you just said, making sure that your kids are aware of what's available to them. I have a college student, and it hasn't failed yet. So far, I think I've counted maybe 13 different mailings and offers from credit card companies now that now that my child is in college. And I'm like, oh no, let's start talking. Let's talk
Hmm.
about, hey, you're gonna receive all these offers. They're gonna sound amazing. It's like
Hmm.
it's gonna feel like free money, like you didn't have to do anything, so to speak, to get this money. And it's a conversation that I have definitely had to implement. So therefore, there's no cycle
Hmm.
that
Hmm.
happens. So, yeah, when you were talking about that, that was one of the thoughts that came up to mind. Another few points that you made, I want to talk about when it comes to parents, for those who, like you were saying, and this is part of the issue, a lot of parents themselves, they don't have the knowledge, so to speak, of being able to talk to their kids about money because they're still living check to check. They're still living off of, if they have savings, very very little savings, and they may not be confident in talking about finances or money with their kids. And one thing that I want to add on to what you were saying earlier is just have the basic conversation. And it doesn't mean that you have to pull out this whole Excel spreadsheet and,
Exactly.
and go
Exactly.
so, fancy with it. No, just keep it very simple. And another thing that you pointed out, because I have to remind myself not to go, well, back when she was younger, I wanted to be mindful of also being careful with not putting the financial situation of the household onto the kids or burdening them, like you said, placing that burden on them. Whenever you are just talking about finances and just, simply wanting to let them know, hey, this is what's going on. This is a better way of doing it, just so you know. So, yeah, being very careful of not putting the burden on kids, because at the end of the day most kids will automatically take conversations like that on as, oh, well, I need to do something about it. I need to
Hmm.
go out here and get a job. I need to go help in, make some money in order to pay bills. And although their thoughts and their heart is in the right place, it's for some, and depending on age and all of that kind of stuff, it's not the best choice for them to make. Let them focus on being a kid. Let them focus on their schooling, their education, enjoying just what being a kid is all about, having fun, whatever that may look like, and not burden them with the financial state of the home, of the household. It's like an art. You have
Hmm.
to be able to know what all you can discuss without maybe going too far, but start somewhere.
And I want to add to that. You're a parent, I'm a parent. We're gonna get it wrong. It's just gonna happen. There's gonna be some times where maybe we don't share enough or we share too much. But I think not being open and honest about something that's so fundamental, like money, is that we can't do that, right? So know that yeah, sometimes you'll get the balance just right, and sometimes you'll get it wrong. But if we don't talk about it at all, we're doing a disservice to our children. We're not setting them up for success, and we don't want to leave that legacy behind. We want them to feel like they're empowered and they know. And I agree with you. It could be a bit of a dance. It could be a bit of a balancing act of making sure that they don't feel like they now need to take on the weight of the world because of what we were telling them. So we need to make sure that we let them know, your needs are met. We are taking care of your needs. You do not need to worry about that. We're sharing this information just so that you're more aware of what's happening in the world. And this happens, like, again, I have two kids, and this is just a challenge in general, right? As parents, this is just a challenge that we have to, like, tell them about what's happening in the world without them feeling the weight of the world. You talk to them about climate change or what's happening in the Ukraine or any of these things. Like, you want them to be aware, but you don't want them to feel like, oh my gosh, well, what do I do about it? But the one thing I do want to add to that is one of the beautiful things of talking about financial literacy and talking about money and money management is that there is an opportunity there that I want to highlight, especially if you're able to give your child an allowance or if they're able to make some money on their own, is that you can start talking about how they, as a child, can start helping to do some good in the world, whether that be through donating or volunteering their time and all these ways that they can give back. This is a way, and showing appreciation and gratitude. These are ways that we can talk about these bigger world challenges and say, listen, there's still things that we can do to contribute. And I talk a lot about appreciation and gratitude with regards to financial literacy because, it's not just about going out and acquiring more. I think if we're in the mindset that, we need to build wealth so that we can acquire more things, then we'll be in that situation where we're having a hard time living off of less than we make. But if you can see the value of building wealth in a way where you can also now give back and be appreciative of the things that you do have, that opens up even more space to do good in the world. So it's a balancing act, but there's opportunity in there as well where our children can start to contribute to the world in positive ways that they may actually feel even more empowered when they're like, well, I did this event. I can think of, like, I'm going to use my son as an example, where he did a fundraising for homeless people in the city. So it was people who are unhoused and, they need, clothes and they need food and they need shelter and all these things. So he did a fundraising event, and he's done a few things now because that's an issue that resonates very strongly with him, to make sure that he was donating in some of what he makes from his various, entrepreneurial endeavors. He always makes sure that he can donate some of that money because he feels so strongly about this challenge. And this is a challenge that's bigger than him. It's bigger than me. It's bigger than us. But he feels like at least he's doing something to contribute to this thing. So, like I said, it's a balancing act. You don't want your children to feel like they have the weight of the world on their shoulders, but at the same time, some of them might already feel that, and this might be an opportunity for them to feel like they can actually do something of impact in the world. So there's value there as well.
Definitely. Is there, whether it be in your opinion or with your experience, is there a certain age or age range of where a kid, or it may be good to start talking about finances with children?
So I like to say, never too old, never too young. I'm not going to say you're going to be talking to an infant, but once our kids start to recognize that money is being used as a means of trade, you go to a store and they notice that, you're paying for something or they're asking for things at a store. I feel like it's a great age to start doing some early money management concepts, whether that be, coin identification or bill identification, or just talking about what money is and what it's used for. So, those are great ages to at least start having those initial conversations. As they get older, if they're comfortable managing their own money, you could start doing an allowance. I think ideally by the time our kids are, later teens, if we can start giving them a budget to manage, so transition an allowance to like managing a budget. So if your teen is managing their lunch budget or clothing budget or toiletry budget or something, so they can actually have some tangible practice doing what I'm talking about. So it's not just having conversations. Conversations are great, and I think they're necessary, and I think they go a long way. But if you can then combine a conversation with a chance for them to actually practice doing some of these things, where they can actually practice transacting and saving and donating, then you've got a great combination of skills where they're learning and they're talking to you, and you can guide and you can advise. So by the time they're in their, like I said, late teens, if you can actually be giving them a budget, and this is the beauty of it, is that you're not trying to find more money for them. You're just basically finding the money that you were going to spend on them anyways and say, you manage it, because in a couple of years, they're going to be managing their own budget anyway. So if they can start doing it while they're at home with you in a safe place, where if they make a mistake, it's not going to have, negative repercussions on their credit report and their credit score and all of these things, then, that's the ideal state. That's what I'm really trying to encourage folks to do. So at the early ages, you can start playing games. Monopoly is a great one. I developed a kids workbook. You can get it at kidsmoneyworkbook.com, and it has money identification in there. It's got puzzles, it's got financial literacy word finds, it's got a bunch of stuff. It's free. You can download it anytime. It'll always be free. So that's like for the young ones, like grade ones to three. So that gives them a sense of some of the stuff that they'll be doing. You can budget and that, whatever, budgeting and accounting, all that kind of great stuff. But really, you just want to make it something that's top of mind, right? So it's something that your kids feel comfortable talking to you about. It's something you feel comfortable talking to them about. And it's not having, this is what money is conversation. Like it's, if we know anything about children, we know that talking to them once about something is almost useless. I'm not saying it's useless, but it's almost useless. We need to reinforce it. We need to keep re-engaging. And ideally we're adding information as we go. As they get older, we can, level up as they get older, and they'll learn and understand even more about what they're going to be they're going to have to do it on their own at some point. So the sooner we can get them comfortable being confident money managers, the better.
Whew. So many questions I want to ask, but I am going to hold off because, so for everyone that's listening right now, and you're tuned into this particular podcast and this channel, everything that we've discussed today so far has been more to you, the individual, has been more about you as maybe the adult and or maybe your adult kids as well. I do have the other podcast channel. It's called the Single Parents Network. And I'm hoping that I can get Clifton to come and be a guest speaker over there as well, to where we will focus on parenting and family and kids when it comes to financial literacy as well. And if he comes, then that's where we'll be able to expound on everything that he just talked about within the last few minutes or so regarding kids. And we're definitely going to get him to talk more in detail about the kidsmoneyworkbook.com, that website, to where you can get more information downloaded in order to start working on finances and money and learning how to introduce it to kids, especially starting around the ages of 1 to 3. And of course, I'm sure we're going to talk about teenagers as well, adding it that extra level of maybe responsibility, extra level of information and knowledge, and so forth and so on. So therefore, we as parents can make sure that our kids are prepared for when it's time for them to leave the nest. So Clifton, I'm hoping that you will accept my offer. You don't have to say anything right now.
I would be
um,
happy to come back. And just to clarify, the workbook is for grades 1 through 3.
Great.
But yeah, but I'd be more than happy to come back. I'm, like I said, I'm a very passionate advocate on financial literacy for young people and parents and people in general. So I'd be more than happy to come back. Thank you for that.
Yes. Awesome, awesome, awesome. Absolutely. And we're going to start closing out this particular channel today. I do want to end on some resources. So I know that you have two books that you've mentioned throughout our time together: Your Kids, Their Money, and The Richest Man in Babylon. So, in just a few minutes, I am going to give you the opportunity to really promote those books if you choose. But just in general, what are some other resources that we can give to our listeners right now to help them if they're not that knowledgeable when it comes to finances, just as a person?
Sure.
One thing that came to my mind is maybe the local library and seeing what classes they may offer. Of course, we have the internet here with different YouTube channels, maybe being very careful with which ones you watch and follow. But what resources can you suggest and share for those who want to just kind of learn a little bit more and then start getting their hands wet?
Sure. I agree with you. Pardon me. I agree with you. The library is a great resource. I know they're often offering free courses and, of course, the books that are there. It's so hard for me to answer this one because I've met so many wonderful coaches and advisors and planners. All of those folks, if you could find, a certified financial planner, if you need some support, or financial coaches, financial advisors, if you're looking for outside support, on my website, cliftoncorbin.com/blog, I have a blog article there with like what I think are some of the best financial literacy or personal finance books for all ranges. So whether if you're just getting started, you feel like you're an expert, if you're trying to tell a teen, if you're trying to tell toddlers, it's basically from toddler all the way up to retired. And it's got books there for pretty much any demographic. I will share the link specifically with you after the call because I can't remember it offhand. Um, But yeah, I'm a big fan of books, obviously. So I like the idea of books, and I think especially when you start getting into, actually reading some of these books, because they walk you through some of the steps that you want to go through, kind of like what you were talking about. I think coaches are great. Obviously, I wouldn't be talking to you if I didn't. But it's walking through some of these steps that can get you from, well, envisioning where you want to go and determining how you want to get there and figuring out what's your motivation to keep you there, whether it's developing your own mission statement. Again, that's talking about your why. So yeah, if I always, like I say, I always go for books because you don't have to pay for them. You could go to the library, pick it up, it could cost you nothing, and it could be, that first step to get you to where you want to be. So, um, yeah, let's stick with the library. It's a great resource, and it's free.
Exactly. We're talking finances here, being
Yeah,
smart with your money. That's what library makes sense to me. Going to get you a car. You're probably paying with your local taxes anyway. So
exactly, exactly.
might as well get your money's worth. Whew. Well, I am looking forward to this next section. We are about to have a little bit of fun. So, Clifton, I have some out of the box questions to ask you. We
Hmm.
know you when it comes to finances and debt and all of that kind of stuff. So, now we want to get to know a little bit more about you outside of the financial space. So, if you're okay, I would like to ask you one, two, maybe three questions of just
Sure.
getting to know you and have fun with it. Have fun with it and let's see what comes to mind. So, my first question to you will be, what's your biggest pet peeve?
Oh goodness. Biggest pet peeve. I'm pretty tolerant of a lot. And this is going to go back to the finance piece, and I wish it didn't, but it is one of my biggest pet peeves. I don't like when people say invest when they mean purchase, because there's such a big difference there, right? Like if we're talking investing, we're talking about buying something that's going to appreciate over time. And if you talk about, I'm going to invest in, you know, I was going to say a pair of shoes, but we all know that, sneakerheads know what they're talking about when they're investing in shoes too. But you know what I mean? Like that one bothers me because I'm so focused on being intentional when we speak to our kids about money, and when we start using the word invest instead of purchase, it really irks me. I wish I can come up with something that's not financial, but that's kind of my jam too. So I'm gonna stick with that one because that one does really irk me.
I can tell, the more you were talking about it, I can, I can see you start winding up a little bit more. I get it. I get it. Okay, so this next question is, what would be your theme song? What would be your theme song? So when you're walking in a room, what song?
No, I hear you. That's a challenge for me because again, it's thematic, right? So if I'm walking in to a gala, I'm not gonna have like Buster Rhymes playing in the background
I
or
mean,
like
but you
Redman.
can.
I
You can.
could, but I don't want. I'd probably do like a little bit of Jackson or something. Like I'm thinking Janet, not Michael, but
Okay.
that's so tricky. So just to get a little deeper, so in my past life and now still, as a pastime, I'm kind of a bedroom DJ. I've got my deck set up here, so music is still very, 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 very much a part of my life. My parents are both from Trinidad, so a lot of soca, a lot of reggae, a lot of '90s and 2000 hip hop. That's kind of my scene. So picking a song out of all of that, I don't think I can give you just one. It's You've given me an impossible task by asking me to name one song to be my theme song. It really has to give me a scenario, give me a setting. And then I could probably give you a song.
Okay. You're coming into whatever, like the next big milestone birthday for you. Your party. You're playing
First
it.
song that came to mind was "Time for Some Action" by Redman. It's explicit, but it's a hype song, right? Like I think
Yes.
that's what Tyson used to play before he came into the ring. And I'm that's the first song that came to mind.
There we go. That is hilarious. I would have never known that you're a DJ. I also am or was a DJ. I recently stopped in order to focus full time on coaching. So that's funny. That's interesting.
Yeah, I was into it pretty heavily in my 20s, and then I realized if I wanted to actually have a career, I kind of had to pick So I put it down. I didn't get rid of any of the vinyl. Like I'm sitting beside two Technique 1200s right now as we speak. So I didn't. I put it all away for years and years, and then during the pandemic, it was dark days, and everyone was stuck at home. So I pulled all of my stuff out, set everything up on my porch, and just played for the street. I was like, everyone stay far away from each other, but throwing some music into the street just helped raise my spirits. It helped to raise everyone else's spirits. And then my wife looked at me. She's like, "That's the happiest I've seen you since March of 2020." She's like, "You need to keep these out." So I was like, "Okay." So I've kept them out, and if I get a couple of spare minutes here and there, I'll mess around for a bit.
Awesome. Oh man, that is cool. I could just imagine the street being lined up with people 6 feet apart.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. It was great. It was great. It really did help to raise the spirits. It was interesting too because I was just playing the vinyl I had at the time. I've upgraded my system now to be able to play some MP3s as well. But back then I was just playing the vinyl that I had, which yeah, it's a decent collection, but it's limited and it's dated. So
That is awesome. Well, thank you so much for entertaining me and our listeners for that little segment. And as we start wrapping things up, wanting to give you the opportunity to share maybe one final takeaway, one final nugget, whatever it is that you would like to kind of wrap today's conversation up with a bow, or to maybe mention that last other point that you didn't speak about earlier. So
sure.
yeah, what's one final takeaway that you would like to share with us?
Well, since we started the conversation talking about debt, I want to end there. I when I go back to that time in my life, I remember, like I said, it wasn't the best time as I remember, it was a dark time for me. But one of the things that I like to talk about when I talk about debt, especially, is it's a point in time. Like wherever you are now, if you feel like you've got the weight of the world on your shoulders because of the debt that you're in, this is a point in time. It does not need to be the final story of your life. It's just where you are right now. You can make changes. You can find a way to move forward. I often say, the journey is the lesson. So the final story of you has not been written. You're on your way to where you want to be. Use tips by Nrgy or by anyone else that you resonate with to kind of find that end goal, find the path to that end goal, and start working your way to it because you don't need to stay where you are. You can move forward, and that's with anything really. So just make sure that you recognize that wherever you are now, you're just in one point on that journey, and you're as long as you want to, you can move away from that point.
I like that. I've never heard it mentioned quite like that. So that's good. I wrote that down to make sure that I remember exactly how you stated it. And I'm going to make sure I put it in the description of when it's time for me to publish our episode. So thank you. That is a point in time. This is just a point in time. It doesn't have to be your forever, your future, or
No,
anything like that.
it does not define you. No.
Awesome. It does not define you. Awesome takeaway. And my last points to add as well would be one thing that I notice is there are a lot of people who are living check to check and they may not have the additional to put towards savings, or they may not have the additional to be able to add a little bit more to paying off debt, especially if we're talking about credit cards and loans where the interest is overtaking the amount that you're paying, like your minimum payment or or whatnot. And so for me, I would just say for everyone that's listening, if you're in that situation, it's keep it simple. I like to do basic math, and it's simply a situation of where you need maybe more income. And so if that means just getting another side gig, side hustle, whatever it is, just to bring that little bit of extra in, even if it's just an extra $100 per week or more per week or per month, but you have to start somewhere. And so consider what your time management is about or what it's like, and see if you can fit something else in there to help you get over that little hump, that little line. All it takes is just a little bit of extra help to then start chipping away at that big stone or boulder of what we call debt. And so, Clifton, Thank you for your time today and sharing all the knowledge that you have shared with all of our listeners. I do want to give you this opportunity, just wanting to give you the floor to just promote yourself. Let us know where all of our listeners can find you, where can they connect with you. The two books that you mentioned, feel free to promote those, any courses, anything else that's going on, let us know.
Sure. So thank you for that. You can always find me on my website, cliftoncorbin.com. On my website, you can find my books. The first one, Your Kids, Their Money, A Parent's Guide to Raising Financially Literate Children, or my revised version of The Richest Man in Babylon. Especially for this conversation, I think that book has so many pieces of wisdom that can help folks who feel any if like I said on that financial journey. That book can help you for sure. So whether you get my version or the original version, either one will help you get from where you are to where you want to be. It's available on Amazon, it's available on Kindle. My first book is available on Audible, and on Amazon, Barnes and Noble. Basically anywhere you can get a book, you can find my first book right now. So yes, I think again, if you're looking for a resource to help you get from where you are right now to where you want to be, I believe The Richest Man in Babylon, it's a wonderful resource for that. I of course like my version. It was co-edited with my son, so I think it's a special version that really is inclusive and accessible, much more so than the original version. But like I said, either version, if you can get it and you resonate with it and you apply those skills that it talks about within the book, it will get you from where you are to where you want to be. And I have no doubt about that. It's worked for me. It helped me start building my wealth and get me out of debt. And I know it could work for you too.
Nice. Everyone, go check it out. Make sure you go and support Amazon, Audible, Kindle, you name it. No excuses. Barnes and Nobles, whatever format. Make sure that you go and support. That's it for this episode. It's a lot of information, and I know that whomever was supposed to hear it, it's going to make a difference in their lives. So once again, thank you so much, Clifton, for your time. And for everyone else, if you yourself would like to be a guest on my podcast, please reach out to me at nrgspeakslife.com. Also, feel free to share this episode out. If you know someone who can take advantage of the valuable information and the content that we have shared today, be sure you share it. There's no stingy energy here. Share it out in order to help the next person. Thank you so much again for everyone who has tuned in. Be sure that you subscribe and hit the thumbs up button. Make sure that you like this episode so therefore it can get more exposure. And you already know, when you master your mind, when you master your emotions, and when you master your assignment, you can live your purpose and live on purpose. See you next time.